Level 1. The Rations and the Shadows. You are 5 years old, and your entire world is defined by what is missing. You live in a terrace house in South London, but the house is a loose term. The windows are crisscrossed with heavy brown tape to prevent glass shards from turning into bayonets during a blast. You don't know what a supermarket is. You only know the small, cramped corner shop where your mother clutches a crumpled manila book, the ration book. Everything is measured in ounces. 2 ounces of butter, 4 ounces of margarine, 1 egg a week if the chickens haven't been shocked out of laying by the anti-aircraft guns. You watch your mother scrape the last remnants of grease from a tin to flavor a pot of Woolton pie, a flavorless mountain of potatoes and carrots named after a minister you've never met. You've heard of chocolate, but it's a myth, like dragons. To you, a treat is a piece of bread rubbed with a clove of garlic or a spoonful of dried egg powder mixed with water. At 6 p.m., the ritual begins. The blackout. You help your mother pull heavy, light-absorbing curtains over every sliver of glass. If a single candle flame is visible from the street, the air raid warden will scream, "Put that light out!" like a herald of doom. You live in total darkness because light is a target. Light is a map for the men in the sky who want to erase your street. You go to sleep listening to the BBC News on a wireless radio that glows a faint, ghostly orange, hearing names like Dunkirk and Tobruk, places that sound like they belong in a storybook, except the people dying there are the fathers of the boys you play with in the rubble. Level 2. The Rising Wail. You're 7. You become an expert in the language of sound. You can tell the difference between the friendly, syncopated hum of a British Spitfire and the heavy, synchronized growl of a German Heinkel. But the sound you hate most is the siren. It's a mechanical scream that starts low in the gut and rises to a piercing shriek. It means the Luftwaffe is here. You don't panic, you follow the drill. You grab your gas mask, a rubber facepiece that smells of stale spit and charcoal, and descend into the Anderson shelter in the backyard. It is a semi-buried hump of corrugated steel covered in earth. Inside, it is cold, damp, and smells of old worms. You sit on a wooden bench with your neighbors, huddled under wool blankets that never seem to get dry. Then, the Blitz starts. The ground shakes. It's not just a noise, it's a physical blow to the chest. Whistle, thump. That one was blocks away. Whistle, crack. That one was your street. You hold your breath until your lungs burn. Every time the shelter floor heaves, you wonder if you're being buried alive. When the all clear finally sounds, you emerge into a landscape of white dust. The air is thick with the smell of pulverized brick and ruptured gas mains. You see a bathtub hanging from the second floor of a house that no longer has walls. You find a burnt page from a ledger fluttering in the wind. You realize that your childhood isn't a playground, it's a graveyard in progress. Level 3. The Freight Child. The Evacuation. You're 9 years old, and you are being discarded for your own safety. Your mother stands on the platform at Paddington Station. She isn't crying, which scares you more than if she were. She adjusts the cardboard tag tied to your coat button. Name, Arthur. Destination, Devon. Serial number, 4412. You feel like a parcel being sent to a wrong address. The train ride is hours of soot-filled air and the rhythmic clack-clack of wheels taking you away from everything you know. You arrive in a village where the air smells of manure instead of cordite. You are lined up in a village hall like livestock. Local farmers walk up and down the rows, picking the strongest-looking boys to help with the harvest. "I'll take that one," a man says, pointing at you. He doesn't want a son. He wants a laborer. You spend the next 3 years in a hayloft. Your hands become calloused and stained with soil. You learn to wring a chicken's neck and ignore the spray of blood. You send letters home once a month, but the replies grow shorter. Your mother writes about the V-1 rockets, the doodlebugs that cut their engines and fall silently from the sky. You realize you are living in a parallel world. While you are watching the seasons change on a farm, your home is being systematically dismantled by iron rain. You feel a strange guilt for being alive. You feel like a ghost that left its body behind in London. Level 4. The Draft and the Channel. The year is 1944. You are 17. The war has been going on for as long as you can remember. To you, peace is a historical concept you read about in dusty school books. You receive a letter in a windowed envelope. It's not an invitation, it's an order. You are now a private in the 1st Battalion. They give you a Lee Enfield rifle that weighs nearly 10 pounds and a uniform made of wool so scratchy it makes your neck bleed. They teach you how to stab a straw dummy with a bayonet while screaming. They tell you the Germans are Huns. But when you look at the grainy photos in the orientation films, you see faces that look remarkably like your uncle. June comes. You are standing on the deck of an LST, landing ship, tank, headed for the coast of France. The English Channel is a washing machine of gray, churning water. You are surrounded by 300 other boys, all of them wearing green tin hats, all of them violently seasick. The air smells of diesel fumes and vomit. An officer tells you that the eyes of the world are upon you. You don't care about the world. You care about the fact that your hands are shaking so hard you can barely check your ammunition pouches. You realize that the levels of your life have led to this moment. A flat-bottomed boat moving toward a wall of steel and fire. Level 5. The Red Surf, Normandy. You're 18. The ramp drops. The world turns into a cacophony of white noise and screams. You don't jump into the water. You are pushed by the weight of the men behind you. The water is chest-high and freezing. Your pack weighs 60 pounds, and it's trying to drown you. You see the man in front of you, a boy from Manchester who liked to play the harmonica, get hit in the head. He doesn't fall. He just vanishes into the surf. The water around your waist isn't gray anymore. It's a swirling, nauseating pink. You reach the sand, but there is no cover. There are only hedgehogs, twisted iron obstacles that provide the illusion of safety. You press your face into the wet sand, praying to a god you haven't spoken to since you were 5. You spend 6 hours crawling, inch by inch. You aren't a liberator yet. You are an insect trying to survive a giant's boot. By the time you reach the bluffs, your unit is at 40% strength. You look back at the beach and see thousands of bodies scattered like driftwood. You realize that history is just the word people use to describe the mass slaughter of 19-year-olds. You find a discarded German helmet on the ground. You look inside and see a name written in ink, Hans. You realize Hans was probably just as terrified as Arthur. Level 6. The Frozen Ardennes. It is December 1944. You are in the Ardennes forest, and you have discovered a new kind of enemy, the cold. It isn't just a temperature, it's a predator. It seeps through your boots and turns your toes into black, dead wood. You are huddling in a foxhole, a shallow grave you dug in the frozen earth. The trees are exploding. The Germans are using tree bursts, timed artillery shells that detonate in the canopy, raining jagged wooden splinters and hot steel down on you. You haven't had a hot meal in 3 weeks. Your K-rations are a hard bar of chocolate and a tin of greasy ham that you have to scrape out with a frozen finger. On Christmas Eve, the firing stops for an hour. The forest is eerily silent. From the German lines, you hear a faint, haunting melody. Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. You know the tune. It's Silent Night. For 3 minutes, nobody shoots. You think about the plastic chair outside the convenience store in that other story, the lookout. You realize that every war is just a collection of lookouts waiting to die for a cause they don't fully understand. Then an officer barks an order, a flare goes up, and you start shooting at the voices that were just singing about peace. Level 7. The Gates of Hell. The year is 1945. You are 19, and you are part of the sweep into the German heartland. You come across a place called Bergen-Belsen. From a mile away, the smell hits you, a sweet, cloying rot that sticks to your clothes. You break the locks on the gates, expecting a fight. Instead, you find silence. You see heaps of what looks like cordwood stacked against the walls, but then you realize the wood has skin. You see people who look like skeletons draped in rags. They don't cheer. They don't have the strength to cheer. They just stare at you with eyes that have seen the end of the world. You hand your chocolate bar to a woman who looks 100 years old. She clutches it like it's a holy relic. You realize that all the propaganda, all the speeches, and all the flags were just window dressing. This systematic erasure of human beings is what the war was actually about. You feel a rage so cold, it turns your heart to stone. You stop seeing the Germans as men. You see them as a disease that had to be cauterized. You spend the rest of your life trying to wash that smell out of your skin. It never goes away. Level 8. The Great Silence. You are 20. The war ends with a flurry of paper and a few signatures. You go back to London. There are victory parties in the streets, but you stay inside. You can't stand the sound of the fireworks. They sound too much like the 88mm flak guns. You get a job. You marry a girl. You buy a small house with a garden. Your children ask you what you did in the war, and you tell them you were a clerk or a driver. You never tell them about the red surf of Normandy or the skeletons in the camp. You join a generation that decides to never speak of it. You build a world of suburbs and television sets and stability, fueled by the desperate need to forget the chaos you were born into. Level 9. The Final Lookout. You are 96. You are sitting in a recliner in 2026. Your hands are thin and translucent, like parchment. You watch a video on a glowing tablet about a level 1 lookout in a cartel. You see the same cycle of greed and blood, just with different technology. You realize that you were the ultimate lookout. You watched the world burn, you watched it rebuild, and now you're watching it forget. People call you the Great Generation, but you know the truth. You weren't great, you were just the ones left standing when the music stopped. You close your eyes, and for a fleeting second, you smell the lard and the wet wool of the shelter. You realize that even after 90 years, you're still that 5-year-old boy in the dark, waiting for the all clear that never quite comes.